Hello. I'm not quite sure how to follow that. That was wonderful. All right. I also have a song. You may have heard of him. This is called Democracy by Leonard Cohen. And I have a family member in this audience, so if I mess up, I will hear about it for the rest of forever. Okay, so here we go. Democracy. It's coming through a hole in the air from these nights in Tiananmen Square. It's coming from the feel that this ain't exactly real. Or it's real, but it ain't exactly there. From the wars against disorder, from the sirens nights and day, from the fires of the homeless and the ashes of the gay, democracy is coming to the USA. It's coming through a crack in the wall and a visionary flood of alcohol, from the staggering account of the Sermon on the Mount, which I don't pretend to understand at all. It's coming from the silence of the dock of the day, from the brave, the bold, the battered, the heart of Chevrolet. Democracy is coming to the USA. It's coming from the sorrow in the streets, the holy places where races meet, from the homicidal bitchin' that goes down in every kitchen to determine who will serve and who will eat, from the wells of disappointment, from the women kneel to pray, from the grace of God in the desert here and the deserts far away. Democracy is coming to the USA. Sail on, O mighty ship of state, to the shores of need, past the reefs of greed. Through the swales of hate, sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. It's coming to America first, the cradle of the best and of the worst. It's here they got the range and the machinery for change. And it's here they got the spiritual thirst, and it's here the family's broken, and it's here the lonely say that the heart has got to open in the fundamental way. Democracy is coming to the USA. It's coming from the women and the men. Oh baby, we'll be making love again. We'll be going down so deep the river is going to weep and the mountain's going to shout amen. It's coming like the tidal flood beneath the lunar sway, imperial, mysterious, in an amorous way. Democracy is coming to the USA. Sail on, I'm sentimental, if you know what I mean. I love the country, but I can't stand the scene. And I'm neither left or right, I'm just staying home tonight, getting lost in the hopeless little scream. But I'm stubborn, and those garbage bags, the time cannot decay. I'm junk, but I'm still holding up this little wild bouquet. Democracy is coming to the USA. Thank you.
She was supposed to announce the next person, but that's okay. I left my phone, so I was freaking out. Next up is Dr. Van Hartman from Manhattanville College.
Hi. You may remember a few years back that Laura Bush invited a group of poets to the White House to read poetry, and President Bush invaded Iraq at about the same time, and when Laura Bush found out that the poets coming to the White House might actually read poems in opposition to the war, she disinvited them. And it seems to me that my poem, Thank You, Mr. President, has come back into vogue again. So this poem is called Thank You, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President, for saving us from poetry. Barbaric yelp of needy voices, crowding narrow pens, unruly urges breaking measured lines, root that cracks the sidewalk, frost that heaves the road, curl and crash of surf, breach and splash of dolphins, deep bassoon of whales sounding the abyss, ice cracking, wind thrashing, drone of pine bent beneath the snow, rumble of caribou, gallop of horse, steady stroke of goose, lazy clap of crow, arms swinging, hammers pounding, rip of saw through seasoned wood, tongues of lovers, legs of runners, tiny heartbeats in the womb, schoolrooms full of children laughing, cacophony of swollen rapids in the spring. Thank you, Mr. President, for striking up your band, for giving us a Marshall meter and silencing that mess. Thanks for beating drums, bugle calls, smartly snapping flags, tread of tanks, pulse of rotors, throaty growls of F-16s, sharp report of rifle shot, machine guns' tight staccato roll, thud of howitzer and mortar shell, timpani of bombs dropped from droning fortresses, invisible at 40,000 feet. Thank you for the clear, decisive crack of bone and spine, rhythmic spurt of blood, shredded arteries, savored flesh, convulsive tremor of someone's brother's dying hand, and that deeper, slower, silent rhythm of corpses decomposing in the sand. And you may recall that more recently, last summer, there was a photograph that spread across the news media and social media of a little boy sitting on an orange chair who had been pulled from the rubble of a bombing. And this poem is called War Porn. We've stolen your face, Amran Dakhnish, pasted it on the front page of the Times, flashed it across the evening news, posted it onto Facebook, scanned it onto laptops, tablets, iPhones, sitting on sofas and recliners in living rooms, studies, cafes, nibbling at the horror, feeding our hunger, imbibing perhaps some soothing before dinner drink. We devour your small body, gray-brown clump of mud, listless, bobble-headed rag doll pulled from the wreckage, propped upright on an orange chair, mushroom cap hair, one eye widely blank, the other crusted shut with blood like strawberry jam, a little boy made perfectly, then torn apart. We also had you months ago, younger, with a different name, a tumble of rags knocked about by the surf and washed up against the edge of Asia. Again, you made the evening news, social media, the New York Times. We had you in Fallujah, and before that in Sarajevo, little bundles ripped and wrapped in dust. You ran for us naked and burning in Vietnam, had your skull stripped clean and stacked in Cambodia. It was you, I'm sure, we couldn't see, vaporized and invisible in Hiroshima. Here, boys your age do photo shoots for Gap Kids, Benetton, Toys R Us, soft brown hair, gel-styled into mushroom caps, not unlike yours, but obliquely hinting at the Beatles, performing front flips in sky blue trunks, sunlit teeth laughing at the camera. You flipped, I'm sure, when the bomb struck, flew through sharpened air in mud-caked shorts, settled with a million particles of dust in the sunless pit from which they pulled you, lips shut and sealed and set against the world, unspeakable knowledge shrouding your silent face. Your image feeds us again and again, until sated, we reach for the remote, pronounce it awful, elect a clown for president, and turn you off. And this is my pleasure to introduce Rennie McQuilkin, Poet Laureate of Connecticut.
I was at an earlier Writers Resist event at Real Artways in Hartford, and we gathered to speak to one another in ways that we are speaking to one another today. And I'm going to read a poem that came out of that event. If I can find where I put it. Robert Frost said, something there is that doesn't mount a wall. This has something to do with that. This is about various kinds of walls between the living and the dead, and the one race and another race, and the people and the people. And I'm in the process of finding it. entitled Outside In. Go home, the world says to the homeless huddled on rafts. Says no, with ballots and guns. Today a red-bellied is hammering a hole enclabbered by my window. Come in, that drumming says to red squirrels, bad bird. But something in me agrees, loves a wall being undone in Berlin, in any hometown, any heart. I go back to last night's huddle of poets celebrating the life of our friend, undoing the wall between us and him, that new outsider. We take in his homeless ghost. For him, Abu drums, hands blurring on taut goatskin palms, knuckles, fingertips, calloused hand heels drumming an opening spacious enough for the dead, for all of us. Come in, come in. Abu goes on drumming in whoever is out, all things wanting habitat, all creatures endangered, the wounded walking bomb-blasted refugee roads, a child freezing in December, last speaker of a tribal tongue. Come in, come in. He is drumming us, outsiders, in to the wide savanna of the past we share with him. Abu Alvin Carter, Sr. is a fabulous drummer in the Harvard area. I don't know if you know him. And one other. I think the rough beast is not merely slouching toward Bethlehem to be born. I think he's rampaging there. I think he's arriving. I think he's there. It's like, unfortunately, he's ensconced. This is a little bit about that. It's a little bit about the expensive yachts that are going to be more available shortly if the top 5% have more money to spend on toys. So this is only ostensibly about yachts, but they'll stand for other things. It's called Regatta. All night beneath the stately turn of the richly constellated sky, they rode the star-filled swells expensively, their halyards chiming that now are under jib and spinnaker. From this hill, this humming top, it might be ivory queens, bishops, kings, gowns billowing, who make their cryptic moves across the mottled bay. Overhead, a skein of swans, wings working up the air to whistle. And this, for heraldry, a blue and silver kite, an osprey, a red tail rounding out the sky. How hard to believe in anything less heavenly. But there it is. The dive, direct hit of the hawk, and sudden tangent to the nest, that inner spring of rabbit ribs, shrew skin, quail down, fox fur. As for the yachts, the swift, white yachts, how many among us must be taken bone and gut that these may be so sleek? Let's hope for better. And it's my honor to introduce Dr. Rick McGee, Professor, Sacred Heart University.
Thanks, Laurel, for making me follow that. It's not going to work, is it? I teach a lot of 19th century American literature. I'm looking at one of my professors right now. And I look back at some of the stuff going on then, and I think that we can maybe take that as a model. A lot of people, especially a lot of women, were extremely angry at the injustices they were seeing in American society, so they fought and they wrote and they marched. And here is one of those fierce women who persisted. Margaret Fuller. This is an essay she wrote that was published in the New York Daily Tribune on July 4th, 1845, called 4th of July. The bells ring, the cannon rouse the echoes along the river shore. The boys sally forth with shouts and little flags and crackers enough to frighten all the people they meet from sunrise to sunset. The orator is conning for the last time the speech in which he has vainly attempted to season with some new spice the yearly panegyric upon our country, its happiness and glory. The audience is putting on its best bib and tucker and its blandest expression to listen. And yet, no heart, we think, can beat today with one pulse of genuine, noble joy. Those who have obtained their selfish objects will not take a special pleasure in thinking of them today, while to unbiased minds must come sad thoughts of national honor, soiled in the eyes of other nations, of a great inheritance risked, if not forfeited. Much has been achieved in this country since the first Declaration of Independence. America is rich and strong. She has shown great talent and energy. Vast prospects of aggrandizement open before her. But the noble sentiment which she expressed in her early youth is tarnished. She has shown that righteousness is not her chief desire, and her name is no longer a watchword for the highest hopes to the rest of the world. She knows this, but takes it very easily. She feels that she is growing richer and more powerful, and that seems to suffice her. These facts are deeply saddening to those who can pronounce the words "my country" with pride and peace only so far as steadfast virtues, generous impulses find their home in that country. They cannot be satisfied with superficial benefits, with luxuries and the means of obtaining knowledge which are multiplied for them. They could rejoice in full hands and a busy brain if the soul were expanding and the heart pure, but the higher conditions being violated, what is done cannot be done for good. Such thoughts shadow patriot minds as the cannon peal burst upon the ear. This year, which declares that the people at large consent to cherish and extend slavery as one of our domestic institutions, takes from the patriot his home. This year, which attests their insatiate love of wealth and power, quenches the flame upon the altar. Yet, there remains the good part which cannot be taken away. If nations go astray, the narrow path may always be found and followed by the individual man. It is hard indeed, when politics and trade are mixed up with evils so mighty that he scarcely dares touch them for fear of being defiled. He finds his activity checked in great natural outlets by the scruples of conscience. He cannot enjoy the free use of his limbs glowing upon a favorable tide, but struggling, panting, must fix his eyes upon his aim and fight against the current to reach it. It is not easy. It is very hard just now to realize the blessings of independence. For what is independence if it do not lead to freedom? Freedom from fraud and meanness, from selfishness, from public opinion, so far as it does not consent with the still, small voice of one's better self. Yet there is still a great and worthy part to play. This country presents great temptations to ill, but also great inducements to good. Her health and strength are so remarkable, her youth so full of life that disease cannot yet have taken deep hold of her. It has bewildered her brain, made her steps totter, fevered but not yet tainted her blood. Things are still in that state when 10 just men may save the city. Let me repeat that line. Things are still in that state where 10 just men or women may save the city. A few men are wanted, able to think and act upon principles of an eternal value. The safety of the country must lie in few such men. Men who have achieved the genuine independence of wrong, of violence, of falsehood. We want individuals to whom all eyes may turn as an example of the practicability of virtue. We want shining examples. We want deeply rooted characters who cannot be moved by flattery, by fear, even by hope, for they work in faith. The opportunity for such men is great. They will not be burnt at the stake in their prime for bearing witness to the truth, yet they will be tested most severely in their adherence to it. There is nothing to hinder them from learning what is true and best. No physical tortures will be inflicted on them for expressing it. Let men feel that in private lives, more than in public measures, must the salvation of the country lie. If that country has so widely veered from the course she prescribed to herself, and that the hope of the world prescribed to her, it must be because she had not men ripened and confirmed for better things. They leaned too carelessly on one another. They had not deepened and purified the private lives from which the public must spring, as the verdure of the plain from the fountains of the hills. We know not where to look for an example of all or many of the virtues we would seek from the man who's to begin the new dynasty that is needed of fathers of the country. The country needs to be born again. She is polluted with the lust for power, the lust of gain. She needs fathers good enough to be godfathers, men who will stand sponsors at the baptism with all they possess, with the goodness they can cherish, and all the wisdom they can win, to lead this child the way she should go, and never one step in another. Are there not in schools and colleges the boys who will become such men? Are there not those on the threshold of manhood who have not yet chosen the broad way into which the multitude rushes, led by the banner on which, strange to say, the royal eagle is blazoned, together with the word expediency? Let him decline that road and take the narrow, thorny path where integrity leads, though with no prouder emblem than the dove. He may there find the needed remedy, which, like the white root, the moly, detected by the patient and resolved Odysseus, shall have power to restore the herd of men, disguised by the enchantress to whom they had willingly yielded in the form of brutes to the stature and beauty of men. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Chris Bradley, the director of the Norwalk Public Library.
Well, I've changed my mind. When I saw that the famous Soviet poet Yevtushenko died on April 1st, I thought it would be fitting to read Babi Yar, one of his many poems of protest. But since then, I've decided to read something that was written closer to our home, but further back in time. On April 19, 1837, 180 years ago, the monument to the battles of Lexington and Concord was dedicated to commemorate that very first battle of the American Revolution, which was fought on April 19, 1775. None other than Ralph Waldo Emerson was chosen to commemorate those brave, outnumbered militiamen who drove the British Army regulars back to Boston Harbor. Emerson's Concord hymn describes the first shot fired by the Patriots at the North Bridge in Concord. By the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here once the embattled farmers stood and fired the shot heard round the world. The foe long since in silence slept, alike the conqueror silent sleeps, and time the ruined bridge has swept down the dark stream which seaward creeps. On this green bank, by this soft stream, we set today a votive stone, that memory may their deed redeem, when, like our sires, our sons are gone. Spirit that made those heroes dare to die and leave their children free, bid time and nature gently spare the shaft we raise to them and thee. So old-fashioned when I think of all the poems. It's like, this is really old-fashioned. But next, you have a real treat. Marianella Medrano, a poet who I have known from a mutual friend, and I love Marianella. What a beautiful name. You were born to be a poet.
So I'll read 2 short poems. Now, in this moment, the past rises from the rubble. I trace with only one eye the throbbing veins of history. An eye for an eye leaves us no brothers to love or hold. I go back to find them. The secret covenant looks backwards. I hold them and feel the forward pulse. The vantage is palpable, larger than us. With our magic song and lyrics that bind us in grace, we travel the densest paths, free. Maybe the future is beyond my grasp, but this moment is ours. We have words to paint our losses, to keep us tightly bound into the now. And I guess both poems traveled in time. What Mary Magdalene told me. Her eyes shone in the dark. Each blink of her eyelashes harvest long lines of women, weaving us all into one colorful crown. She rose almighty in the night, told me it was okay to denounce Mother Church if she didn't let our voices be hers. We both saw Jesus on the cross, made a soft pillow for his head before the crowd rushed to his feet. No need for recognition, we did what was right. At dawn, we gathered by the river, white water lilies witnessing us, a terrible odor of putrefaction. She whispered, "This is how we were dragged out of history." But the water lilies will keep on blossoming, no longer white, but blossoming the lilies. By then, I was holding my iPod, taking pictures. Thank you. And it is a pleasure to introduce Steve Berixi.
Thank you, Dr. Medrano. Thank you very much for being here this afternoon, this wonderful event. The voice that I'm going to be reading this afternoon is a 26-year-old French visitor to the United States in the early 1830s, while Andrew Jackson was president. After Alexis de Tocqueville returned to France, he wrote and then subsequently published what is sometimes referred to as the best book ever written about the United States. It's titled Democracy in America. I'm going to read 3 very short excerpts from the Penguin Classics edition. Gerald Bevan was the translator. I want to freely admit and disclaim that these books, there are 2 volumes, are 850 pages long, and I'm reading 3 short excerpts taken completely out of context. But by doing that, I think that the contemporary implications are unmistakable. This is an excerpt from Book 1, Chapter 5, titled Government by Democracy in America. Tocqueville is identifying a problem that he observed during his travels in the United States. Second reading is an example of that problem, and the third is a solution. Quote, "When dangers threaten the state, the people often make a happy choice of those citizens best suited to save them. It has been noticed that in the face of imminent danger, a man rarely remains at his normal level. He either rises well above himself or dips well below. The same happens to nations. Extreme dangers, instead of lifting a nation, sometimes end by bringing it low. They arouse its passions without giving them direction and confuse its perceptions without clarification. I have said above that statesmen of modern America seem greatly inferior to those who appeared at the head of affairs 50 years ago. Close quote. That was 180 years ago. And then, in Book 1, Chapter 9, titled The Main Causes Which Tend to Maintain a Democratic Republic in the United States, he looks very specifically at an example of that problem. How can we deny the inconceivable influence of military glory on the opinion of a nation? General Jackson, chosen by the Americans twice as the head of their government, is a man of violent disposition and mediocre ability. Nothing in the course of his career has ever proved that he had the necessary qualities to govern a free nation. In addition, the majority of the enlightened classes in the Union have always been against him. So who has placed him upon the president's chair and still keeps him there? The recollection of a victory he won beneath the walls of New Orleans 20 years ago. And this is the solution in Book 2, Chapter 12, titled How the Americans View the Equality of Men and Women. And now, as I come to the end of this book, in which I have recorded so many considerable achievements of the Americans, if I am asked how we should account for the unusual prosperity and growing strength of this nation, I would reply that they must be attributed to the superiority of their women. I assume that I speak for everyone here this afternoon in offering deep thanks to Professor Laurel Peterson, the Poet Laureate of Norwalk, Dr. Rebecca Hussey, and to Dr. McGee from our sister institution, Sacred Heart, for organizing this wonderful event. Right on and right on.
Next up is Bill O'Connell, who will be reading a piece by Adrian Rich.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's nice to know that this kind of situation was repeated in the past and all survived. So it's a comforting thought, actually. I'm reading a poem by Adrian Rich, one of my favorite poets, who was a profoundly important public intellectual, feminist, and poet. And she died in 2012. She was enormously important in a lot of the movements that we know today and hope to keep arose in the 60s in this country. There's a poem called What Kind of Times Are These? There's a place between two stands of trees where the grass grows uphill and the old revolutionary road breaks off into shadows near a meeting house abandoned by the persecuted who disappeared into those shadows. I've walked there picking mushrooms at the edge of dread. But don't be fooled. This isn't a Russian poem. This is not somewhere else, but here. Our country moving closer to its own truth and dread, its own ways of making people disappear. I won't tell you where the place is, the dark mesh of the woods meeting the unmarked strip of light, ghost-ridden crossroads, leaf mold paradise. I know already who wants to buy it, sell it, make it disappear. And I won't tell you where it is, so why do I tell you anything? Because you still listen. Because in times like these, to have you listen at all, it's necessary to talk about trees. Thank you. Okay. It's my pleasure to introduce Jerry T. Johnson, a poet. Welcome. Thank you.
Seems there's gods and lords ruling parts of this world, as the wide gap between rich and poor widens more, as rifts between classes rupture, we stand gazing, mouths agape, astonished at a stark, pompous gait of a brash nakedness. My name's Jerry Johnson. I'm a little old poet from little old Danbury, Connecticut. Thanks, Laurel, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be a part of Writers Resist. That first poem was The Nakedness of Arrogance. The next one appeared in Silhouette Press earlier this year. Will appear in Great Weather for Media later this year. The title is In Memory of Forgotten Atrocities. In memory of the 1877 Compromise, ending Reconstruction, opening doors for Big Jim Crow and KKK Klan. In memory of bigotry and greed, bending treaties with Lakota and authorizing Wounded Knee. When surrounded by forces bearing iron shafts, mounted atop steel snorting steeds, we freeze till frozen blood pains to pass through our constricted veins. Fallen upon our broken knees with twisted arms raised, our welted hands stretch in subjugated surrender towards a stained blade. While drench of tears run down our reddened cheeks, we attempt to watch as our years of toil turn into rivers of burning. Consumed by a depraved gluttony, we lay horrified as we lay raised, weeping amongst our ruined remains. The Cold War Games. This one appeared in Silhouette Press. It was late October 1997 in Moscow. My tour of duty in Russia was winding down. My boss and I just finished dinner at a restaurant positioned just 4 miles from the Kremlin. After dinner, we sipped vodka and talked about fast-moving sports cars. The car he owned was very sporty. It was a slick, silver American model, but he left it at home in the USA because it was much too costly to bring it into Russia. Moreover, he was afraid to have it stolen. Stolen, like many other fine Western cars, owned by many other Westerners, spending time building factories, refurbishing warehouses, furnishing distribution centers, buying delivery trucks, installing computers, configuring software, counting Russian rubles, counting Czech crowns, counting Polish zlotys, counting Hungarian forints. Wherever the former Soviet Union abode, there we were with all our technical toys, playing round after round of business roulette, deluded into thinking that the Cold War games were over. Last one. This is a dedication to writers everywhere. Yeah. The title is Warriors. Keep on writing, you writing warriors. Write on, you writing warriors, write on. Fight to the finish, finish the fight. Exemplify your strength, show your might. Wage your war by the way of your force. Your force, your weapons, pencils, pens, writing pads, writing paper, computer keyboards. Some still use typewriters, none use the gun. None use the gun, none use the cannon, none use the missile, none use the bomb. Your fortresses, arsenals, armories consist of libraries laid in brick, mortar, grit, and stone. Electronic bookshelves also made of digitized zeros and digitized ones. Your eyes see and read. Your minds absorb, assess. Your hearts feel and embrace. You put your hands to the work to lands marred by brutality. You bring compassion, you bring calm. Right on, you riding warriors. 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 Right on. It's my honor and privilege to present to you Suzanne Cosette, Voices of September 11th.
Hey, thank you, Jerry. That's going to be hard to follow. Welcome, welcome everybody. Welcome to those who resist. Welcome to those who persist. Welcome to those of you who hiss at this present assault on our democracy. Welcome. I want to thank Laurel, Rachel, Dr. Levinson, and I also want to send a special shout out to the gang here from Curly's Diner. Give you all a hand, my good friends. The three poems I've picked tonight approach the idea of both compassion and injustice in society, both from a gender feminist perspective, from what's going on here in the United States, and also what's going on here in our world. So I thank you for listening. This is a poem called She Persisted. And this is something I wrote for Senator Elizabeth Warren. And I shall open with a quote from U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell. She was warned, she was given an explanation, nevertheless, she persisted. Boo, yeah. She persisted. Binders full of women, Latina, African American, white, transgender, gay, hole punched, all of us. Paraded for your agenda, served up for your pleasure. Scold bridled in an iron mask, padlocked, depressing our tongues. Crazy emotions and shrill voices bite at the bridle. Sweetie, you'd be much prettier if you smiled. Silence need not equal silence. We have choices. Oh, we nasty women, centuries of us, the smell of us in our words, our sex, our power, our voices. Strapped and dunked and sunk, we rise. We nasty, we trashy. No, we persisted. Those words may well be my first tattoo. When the scars heal, it shall be pink and perfect. And that is called She Persisted, and that's forthcoming in Rust and Maw. Thank you. This is called America First. Dismembered, one stroke of the pen, $1 at a time. The arsonists are in charge of the fire station. Destruction plumes forcing fumes to an indifferent, hazy sky. Books and art in the sulfur flames crackle and snap alongside food scraps for the aged and the melting plastic eyes of children's puppets. The radio hisses its last static, then silence. The water leaches its lead, flowing down the strip mine scar. A fiery freight car carries the lost to the pyre on the river of the dead. In this deconstruction of the administrative state, we're all going to be deconstructed, destructed, and tossed into the mass grave of alternative facts. What did you expect? America First. And as Jerry mentioned, I work for a victim services agency called Voices of September 11th. We've been about for 15 years. And The sad reality is 9/11 didn't end on 9/11. Those people still have needs, but traumatic events happen in communities, countries, nations around the world on a daily basis. And this is my tribute to the victims, the families, the responders, and the survivors. And it's called Numbers. And it's from my book, Peggy Sue Messed Up. Numbers. Thoughts and prayers, while well-intended and severe, let me start again, I'm sorry. Thoughts and prayers, while well-intended and sincere, are not enough in these times. We who treasure peace, treasure life, that which makes us human, we recoil at the numbers. 169 empty chairs, those who will never again be present at the Sunday supper. The silver pool absorbs the loss, then reflects the shards back in an outward blast. 2,977 names on the steel parapets. The fountain's gush masks the city noise momentarily. Then the magnitude hits flush in the gut. Words drowned by rushing water, millions of tears pumped down to the bedrock, then back to the surface. What will be your memorial after the thoughts are thought and the prayers for the dead are said? So many numbers, so many places, I cannot list them all. London, Beirut, Paris, Brussels, Mumbai, Spain, and indeed, it is plain, this is the beginning. Allahu Akbar. God is great, they say, but not in the way they would have us think. Let your faith and your words be bigger than your fear. And I thank you for listening. My name is Susan Cassette. And now we get to bring up our musical interlude here, Gregory. You were awesome at the last break. And yeah, don't put that camera on me. Come on, Gregory, turn the camera off and play some tunes. Thanks, you guys.
I'm Mrs. Gregory Golden, and I was born in Ireland, where we don't fight about race, we fight about religion. I don't think this song needs any introduction.
Just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change won't come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Yeah, change is gonna come.
You can imagine at my house the biggest fights are over microphones. Yeah. Let's hear it from my lovely wife. She's my bright star. Madeleine Golda.
Maddie.
Maddie. So yeah, I can't compete with that except for the power of the material. This song, you all know it. If you want to sing along, please do.
Yes? Okay. All right, so a round of applause for them, please. Next up, I welcome Dr. Susan Wallerstein from the Norwalk Arts Commission.
This phrase keeps percolating, and it's that this feels like comfort food for the soul to me this evening. It's words, it's music, and it's so affirming, and thank you to everybody who organized it. Jacqueline Smith, who's an editor apparently at Danbury News Times, she recently wrote in an op-ed, that the reason it took so many of the women at Fox so long to protest their treatment was because, quote, there's been too much history of women being silent, of avoiding controversy, of being good girls. Good girls. So this is sort of a prequel to She Persisted. And another piece that was read earlier. So even though I was raised to have a voice and encouraged to use it, the experience of feeling marginalized is certainly a recurring theme in my life and in many other people's for different reasons. I'm not alone. When I won a local election 25 years ago, and I was the only woman on the local council, my father sent me this book. And he wrote a little note in it, my late father. He wrote, this is his note, he wrote, I don't see you as a scold, but I thought you might find some good quotes to use in your new position. In revisiting this book, I think the introduction by Don Westlake really explains a lot. It's funny, but it's really not. What is a common, this is an excerpt, quote, what is a common scold? It's a criminal offense. According to Sir William Blackstone, the 18th century British jurist, a common scold is a public nuisance. This is true. Scolds in a legal sense are troublesome and angry women who by their brawling and wrangling among their neighbors break the public peace. Thank goodness. A common scold was a crime, in other words, that consisted essentially of speaking one's mind, and a crime that only a woman could commit. The punishment was a public ducking in a ducking stool plunged into some handy body of cold water. Wonderful how far civilization has advanced since those olden days. Why, the last time a woman was indicted as a common scold in the United States was way back in 1971. 1971, yes. That was in fact a full 4 years after the crime of common scold had been declared obsolete in Great Britain by the Criminal Law Act of 1967. But Great Britain is not New Jersey, where in 1971, Marion B. Dunleavy was arrested, fingerprinted, and indicted as a common scold after an argument with two male neighbors over a parked car. The last woman convicted of being a common scold in the United States was a journalist named Anne Royal, who in 1829 ran afoul of a fundamentalist minister with political ambitions. Among other things, Anne Royal said about Ezra Stiles Ely and his followers that they were, quote, morticians hoping to preside at the death of the Constitution. And the mark of a common scold? Her smarting victim can almost always be heard to mutter while slinking away, she's got a mouth on her, that one. And so she does. And so for quite a long time, women were not supposed to. Which brings us to the uncommon scold. The woman who considers that to have a mouth on her, like Elizabeth Warren, my editorial insert, is a mark of independence, intelligence, pride, and wit. This collection, as the introduction says, is a bouquet of the best that mouthy women down through the ages have had to say on every subject under the sun. Margaret Thatcher and Jane Fonda, Ayn Rand and Germaine Greer, Anita Bryant, Rita Mae Brown, Nancy Reagan, and Emma Goldman. Madame de Stael and Countess Tolstoy mix more or less comfortably with Janis Joplin, Golda Meir, and Moms Mablin. And here are just a few that came from this selection that my father thought might help me. Claire Booth Luce said, they say women talk too much. If you've ever worked in Congress, you know that the filibuster was invented by men. Maureen Murphy, the reason there are so few female politicians is that it is too much trouble to put makeup on two faces. Lily Tomlin, 98% of the adults in this country are decent, hardworking, honest Americans. It's the other lousy 2% that get all the publicity, but then we elected them. And Virginia Woolf, The history of men's opposition to women's emancipation is much more interesting, perhaps, than the story of that emancipation itself. And the beat goes on. And I'm happy to introduce Dr. Faye Stevenson-Smith.
Good evening. I'm humbled by all this amazing talent and dedication for a very worthy cause. I find it a lot easier to deliver babies. I'm going to read some work of some African American poets sandwiched on either side of something that I wrote. This one is White Houses by Claude McKay. Your door is shut against my tightened face, and I am sharp and steel with discontent. But I possess the courage and the grace to bear my anger proudly and unbent. The pavement slabs beneath my feet, a chafing savage down the decent street, and passion rends my vitals as I pass, where boldly shines your shuttered door of glass. Oh, I must search for wisdom every hour, deep in my wrathful bosom, sore and raw, and find in it the superhuman power to hold me to the letter of your law. Oh, I must keep my heart inviolate against the potent poison of your hate. This is a poem that I wrote when I was in class with Laura Peterson. I was going to say Dr. Peterson, but she won't let me call her that. I'll call her that anyway. It's called Sarah Palin's America. I don't blame the GOP for trying to take your country back. Whose country? Oh, beautiful for spacious burial mounds from sea over bloody tears of trail of tears to shining sea. Unsuspecting Wampags breaking bread with pilgrims. Your first Thanksgiving? Who gave what to whom? Smallpox blankets for the journey west? A final solution for Jackson's march toward manifest destiny. Ancestral lands, peoples defiled, ravaged, broken promises strewn like sun-dried carcasses. God blessed America? I can't blame the GOP for wanting to take your country back. After all, you built an empire on the scarred backs of strong black bodies, survivors of the Middle Passage. You raped a continent, put your Johnson back in your britches, saying your mother Africa asked for it, flaunting all of her Ashanti gold. Moans from befouled ship bellies still haunt Rhode Island's docks. Auction mulatto babies or seed money for your trust fund accounts. Field slaves, bed backs, and long sacks, currency for your free market. Protect your Second Amendment rights, you cried. It's the ballot or the bullet, King George, you protested. So what's a few bullets in black boys, or pop-pop from a 9mm Magnum, or barrage through Newtown babies, who might have grown up to be Republicans? How about that? You stockpile your bushmasters and take back the vote from the cities. You legislate hate, bothered by the browning of America. I Too Sing America by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. Then, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. Richard Duffy from his own work.
now that we have totalitarian leadership, I think it's probably a good idea to remind ourselves of a couple of definitions. The first, totalitarianism, which is the effort of the state to be total, that is, to control everything within a country. And secondly, a definition of the state that's most commonly accepted by philosophers of law is that the state is a monopoly of force. That means that the state is basically saying, well, if any force is going to be used here, it's going to be used by us. And so you put those two together, figure what a total state is like. Right? This poem is called Such a Versatile Idea because I think the central idea of the monopoly of force is about killing and our attitude towards it. So, such a versatile idea. Killing, such a hard idea to grow out of. Just when you think you have, you think someone's threatened your life. And why not? It's plausible. Governments rule by force and fraud and rely on our wanting to kill people. So once we think someone wants to kill us, we think we don't have to give up the idea ourselves. Inside each of us, there has to be some rage to keep this going. They need us to be able to look inside a bit and find some murderous desire so we can say, yeah, that's how we are. We're all like that. It must be so. Even I'm like that. And then we give up wanting freedom and instead want protection, even from ourselves. We fall back into the pit. The government applauds, another one for our side. And the church applauds, another sinner, hooray! Let him spend the rest of his life repenting. Okay, let's give him a boost. Schedule him for purgatory. Sure, we say. That's how it is. There's no way out in this life, but at least I can make some money. I can buy stuff. Wow, the more I get, the more I can have. Owning stuff. Isn't it great? And the more we want to buy, the more profit some rich guy can make. That's what keeps the economy running. It's our public service. Feed the rich. Trump doesn't have enough. He needs more. Plaster his name everywhere. Make him richer. That's what we live for. And it all begins with the desire to kill. So much stuff from such a simple beginning. Oh, that wish for someone just not to be there anymore. It all seems so simple. Why can't it always remain that way? Why can't I just wish someone into non-existence the way I thought I could when I was 3? Why can't I just escape from people who give me trouble instead of having to figure out what's wrong with me? Let's just pretend everyone else is wrong. Look at Trump. That's what he does. Why not me? You see how simple it is? You see the secret? Just think killing really isn't that bad. Join the military. Then you can kill. Join the police. Then you can kill if you're in a fix. Become a judge. Then you can make a hangman kill. Become a legislator. Then you can vote to make people kill. Become president. Then you can order people to kill. Become CIA. You can kill people in secret. Get rich like John DuPont or Robert Durst. Become a plutocrat. You can plan mass murder. Tell yourself it's for the good of humanity. There are so many ways to do it. This is a sonnet that I wrote in last August. It's called Liberal Training. Be an above the fray. If you don't have something nice to say, chump, say nothing at all, said our teach, Miss Frump, and lumped back down on the lump of her rump. She made me Brahmin. I worshiped cows. I jumped to offer aid when plump madams slowly slump into chairs that might not be there, or bump shy people who thought themselves safe, or stump down cellar stairs to berate a seized sump pump. I won't think now to ridicule some schlump who wants to trash millions in a garbage dump because they're not enough like him, the grump. He plays us all to be wholly corrupt. He'll take a lot of tricks before we crump, our hearts disarmed, while his hand trumpets Trump. I think that's 5 minutes, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so the next person, what? Yeah, it is? Okay, so the next person seems to be Jim Clark. Okay.